Now, at this point, I assume that you're pretty clear that you need to find a teacher. So, when you find somebody and you want to rely on them, how do you check them out to find out whether or not they are authentic? So it's not certain, but there are some things you can do. One of the best ways is to look at their students. Now, there is a problem here, because very, very famous teachers have thousands, if not millions, of students. You can't just analyze anybody who claims to be their student. You need to look at people who are close to the teacher, either their entourage or somebody who has received their teachings for a very long time, and not only that, but puts their methodology into practice. Now, if these students are very angry and deprecating to others, then that's a sure sign that the teacher is similar. Likewise, if the students are overly involved in material concerns, then this is a sure sign that the teacher themselves is a very desirous person. Likewise, if those students are very loving and compassionate towards each other, and very open-minded and easygoing, they don't cause problems, they're not complicated, and then that's a sign that this teacher is also a very easygoing person and has spiritual qualities. If the students spend all their time in the wilderness, meditating in caves, that's a sign that this teacher values these things, that they have yogic qualities. If the students are very learned and educated on the spiritual path, then that teacher is almost certainly very educated themselves. And there's another way that you can analyze this student-teacher relationship, and that is to look at what a teacher does with the money or gifts that the students give them. Now, the best of teachers will not accept anything from their students. In fact, they will probably give things to their students. An example of this is Patrul Rinpoche. If a student were to give him something like a lump of silver, then he would just leave it lying on the side of the road. He had no concern for material objects. Didn't see these things to be important. Now, there's this Western teacher, and there was a lot of debate as to whether or not he was an authentic Buddhist teacher. I'd wondered about this, and so I found a video on YouTube. And the video was a tour of their mansion. They had taken the offerings from their students and bought a big mansion and filled it from top to bottom with expensive antiques. Not only that, he had bought himself many toys, like motorcycles and guitars. Now, when I saw this, I needed to look no further. It was very clear to me that this teacher was a charlatan, and he was just using his students to fulfill his worldly desires. It is not the case that every teacher who takes offerings from their students is a charlatan. For example, there is the universally acclaimed holder of the Dzogchen lineage, Chatrao Rinpoche. He spent many years wandering around the mountains of Yolmo and practicing in the wilderness. When a student gave him offerings, then he would immediately put this into life release. Life release is a Tibetan tradition and exists in countries like Bhutan and also in China. For example, if you find a goat that is destined for slaughter, and then you'll buy that and release it into the wild, they will clip the ear of the animal, and hunters and nomads will recognize this sign and respect it, and that goat will live out the rest of its life in the wilderness unharmed. So it is an absolute certainty that Chatrul Rinpoche had great compassion. Chatrul Rinpoche was a highly realized master who had the view of emptiness, but this emptiness was not divorced from compassion, and so this is a sure sign that he was a genuine holder of the Dzogchen lineage. Sanjay Nyempa Rinpoche, for example, will take the money from his many students and build universities or hold lectures. He spends all his time educating his students. This is a sign that he is very learned. Within our lineage, there is no one more learned. It is also a sign that he has compassion for his students, and that's because he gives them an education in the Dharma. In general, we see this quality of being easily satisfied and of little desire to be a positive quality in the Dharma. If a teacher reflects these qualities, it is a sign that they are authentic. Now, of course, it's possible to fool others, to put on a show, to pretend to be a great yogi, or to be of great compassion, to talk sweetly and softly to your students, but behind that, to be quite an unpleasant person. And to say they are fake does not necessarily mean that they are a con man, that they are actually trying to lie to you or deceive you. But they are fake because they don't have any spiritual path to teach their students. And being ordinary individuals, then they are motivated by their worldly desires and their negative emotions. For me, another sign if a teacher is a fake is if they spend all their time telling stories about supernatural powers, about ghosts and clairvoyance. And the reason why they say this is because they know that we are excited by these things. Likewise, if a teacher has very strange conduct, it is often done to entertain their students, to get more students on board. And when you have lots of followers, then naturally with that, fame and fortune follow. Also, if a teacher looks down on study, then that's a sure sign that they are fake. They themselves are not learned, and so they don't want their students to be learned. Because if the students become learned, they may ask very difficult questions. A fake teacher, who is not themselves studied, will be afraid of students' questions. They are driven by their negative emotions like ignorance, desire, anger, jealousy, and pride. They will tell you that they have found their own path, one that does not require study or effort. In general, these fake teachers will claim themselves to be awakened. But it is the case that the authentic spiritual masters of the past were always very humble and would not claim to be special in any way. Patrul Rinpoche would wander the countryside like a beggar. Many people thought him just to be an ordinary old man. And so, when you see a teacher who has these positive qualities, like humility, love and compassion, being learned and having stability in practice, then that is a good sign that they are an authentic teacher. They will not claim to be enlightened. They will have only respect for the masters of the past. And principally, an authentic teacher will not be afraid of challenging their students. They will be only concerned with the benefit of their students, and because of that they will challenge them. They will challenge them because they want their students to progress and to find the spiritual path. They won't tell you that it's easy. They will be forthright and upfront with you and tell you how it is. An authentic teacher will never tell their students just what they want to hear, and they will not be afraid of challenging them, and that's because they have compassion. And because if you challenge your students, then it's quite likely they will get angry and they will stop following you. But an authentic teacher has no concern for their self-benefit and is only concerned with the benefit of their students. And so in this way, you may analyze the teacher, come to know what they're like, understand their character. Now, it is not necessarily the case that a teacher who tells stories about miraculous powers or claims to be awakened or has strange behavior will be a charlatan or a fake. A teacher may use any kind of method to tame their students. For example, it is taught in the scriptures that if the students are falling asleep, then the teacher should make a joke. And so at times they may say something funny or act in a peculiar way. The point is, if behind that there is no substance to their teaching, if they only have jokes, if they only have stories about ghosts, if they try to convince you that all their toys and their mansion are part of spiritual practice, then they're fooling you. It's a lie. And don't fall for it, because, quite frankly, you don't have time to waste. This life is impermanent, and so we must use our time productively and not follow false teachers. Also, it is important not to associate with negative friends, because it's true that our friends have a greater influence on us than even our teachers. So it's important to use your time productively to progress on the spiritual path. If you're surrounded by people who are overly concerned with worldly desires, then this will hinder your practice. Be influenced by those who are on the spiritual path. But likewise, never convince yourself that your level of attainment is beyond what you have reached. This will be a huge obstacle to your practice. Now this is very logical. Imagine you were running a marathon and you thought you came to the end. Then you would have no reason to run any further. And this is how it is for people who are told by their teachers that they're already enlightened or awakened. They think they've reached their goal, and years they remain like that and never progress any further. The individual who is diligent, who separates themselves from their worldly concerns and practices in solitude, will gain their final goal. So I hope these things have been helpful for you. These are just some ideas on how you can test your teacher before you decide to rely on them. But once you've decided on a teacher and you're convinced that they are authentic, you should try your best to listen well to what they say and try to embody the qualities that they teach. Listen to their instructions, and especially don't get angry if they chastise you. If they are authentic, then they will be working for your benefit alone. Now, it is possible that you follow a teacher and then later you find that this teacher is a fake. You may follow somebody who you had faith in, and at some time then you've discovered that they're not who they say they are. So what do you have to do? Well, It isn't good at that point to cause a fuss or to make trouble within their community. They have a lot of followers, and it's not a good thing in general then to cause trouble. What you should do is you should just quietly extract yourself from the situation. If you think you have made a mistake, just make an excuse and slowly disappear, and don't make a fuss. So I hope this advice has been of some use to you and that you are able to apply it and progress on your spiritual path. There are some other things related to this, but I'm going to save them for another video. So thank you very much, and see you next time.